Alrighty, welcome back, traders. It has been a while since I made the last video. I think it was actually last June. It was a recap video. I didn't make any videos in between then, so awesome to be back. I'm really glad to be making this video for you guys. Uh, New best month. If you guys follow me on Twitter, I was talking about it. P&L wise, only 4,000 more dollars in terms of P&L, but performance wise, just as I reflected on the month, it, I really don't know what it was this month. Maybe it was just easier plays. Maybe it was me just getting better. But uh, I couldn't be happier with how I traded. Very little mistakes. Great trading, great mental mindset throughout the whole month. Pretty much never really gotten any big slumps. I just felt really good. And maybe as I go through these plays, I'll be able to better identify that. But I think it's just a little bit of both. The market environment's been really good. There's a lot of OTC runners, which is like my bread and butter. So to have so many of those plays, which I'll go over, really like set the tone for how this month was going to go for me. And yeah, so we're just gonna get right into it. First week, actually the first day right here, the Wednesday, was actually my biggest loss of the month on CYDY. So as you know, if you watched my earlier recap or last month's recap, I had a huge day on CYDY as it dumped. Huge, almost $40,000 day, which was this big red day as you see here, and going into the rest of the play here, going into July, there's going to be many more opportunities to be shown after, just because the first red day kind of kills this whole supernova doesn't mean there's more money to be made on the backside. So what I thought was, going into this day, as it was fading, I thought, looking at the daily chart, this thing is still up from $3. It's only at still at 6. Like, this is ridiculous. It should probably still have some sell off in it. And so I did get short again after massively making on this great panic, this dip buy, and then this short bounce. I covered all the short bounce into this fade here. I then reshorted more into this kind of bounce and got this fade. Now, in this fade, I'm thinking, oh yeah, I'm right. Like, this is perfect. This is gonna sell into the close and sell off into the open. And then in the last 5 minutes, we get this bounce, and I didn't think much of it in real time. I thought, oh, okay, it's likely a bounce is due. When you panic like this, it's gonna happen. And I was still up in my position. My average, I think, was like 590 or closer to 6. So I thought, closing at 570, that's okay. I'm still up my position. And then come into the next day, we gap up, and 6 was my risk, and it held 6 super well rather and just squeezed. And so unfortunately, what was supposed to only be maybe a little bit over $1,000 loss, turned into double that, over 2,000, because I just couldn't get filled. I got squeezed. This spike was very quick, and ultimately I didn't get filled till the higher $6 range, 660, 670. So super frustrating. But again, when you made almost $40,000 the day prior, losing 2 grand on the next day isn't the worst thing in the world. Yes, it was more than I wanted to, but sometimes you just can't control the slippage, and it happens. So it wasn't a huge deal, but quite upsetting. In hindsight, looking at it, it's like, yes, it is up from $3, but when you sell off from 10 to 6, there's going to be bouncing going on. There's going to be some choppiness before it ends up going lower, like it did a couple weeks later. So kind of got a little greedy there, thinking it could do it all in one day or 2 days. Um, but that's that. So first loss right out the gate was kind of tough, but then we quickly recovered with LKNCY. This was another great OTC runner, and I actually made about $3,000 on this small red day here. Let's look at the intraday. Let's see. So again, same thing. Looking for the first red day, this was a former listed stock that actually faked their financials. I think they were their coffee company, and they said they sold way more coffee cups than they actually did, or their sales were way higher than they actually were. And so from then it just proceeded to sell off, more and more. And finally it went to the OTC exchange, because just the regulators did not see it as legitimate after lying so heavily. And so after it gapped down on the OTC exchange, went down to $2, went down below $1, then started squeezing, and now we are up to $3. So I was looking for the first red day. Now, having this panic into the close like this, and then a bounce, and then a more panic, really solidified it with me that the backside is probably in. Nothing certain, right? This happened, this panic happened, and it still recovered. So of course the morning action would need to prove to me its backside, but seeing a panic again really kind of gets a little hint, right? It's a little like, okay, let's keep an eye on this stock, and so out the open, $3 is a nice resistance level into the close. It could not break that level, so I think I did get starting short. Actually, I believe I have the intraday trades here. Yeah, here we are. So right into $3, started getting short, covered a little bit, added some back, cover a little bit, add some back, and really these covers aren't really that necessary. I was kind of being a little too cautious. I really could have just let it play out. Now, when it went red like this and it bounced like this, I did get very uncomfortable. Normally, I guess when a stock sells off from $3 all the way down to 260 for a first red move, shorting on the red green move right here is a huge chase. So, you hear me talk about all the time if you watch my recaps. Shorting the first red to green move is a pretty solid play, but not meaning you're chasing, meaning you don't chase, right? It's shorting it right here is a terrible idea. Even though it's the first time that going red green in the run up, shorting right there is not a good idea. Why? Because it just sold off 40 cents from $3. So it's not a perfect science, right? It's an art and a science. You have to look at everything. So yes, red to green move is a trigger for it to be the first red day, which it ended up being, right? But if you're chasing and it's panicking too much, you don't want to enter there. That's a terrible spot to be short. So, in a perfect example, if you did short here, within 10 minutes, you're now down over 10% because this thing literally had a huge, huge bounce. So, even though I was still short from a higher average, even though it was bouncing up here, it did make me a bit uncomfortable. I was a bit confused as to why this was bouncing so high and so much. And if it broke over on the 285, 290 level, like this bouncer, I probably would have had to cut it. But because it was bouncing so much, I knew a pullback was likely. Like this thing isn't just gonna bounce straight up to high day, and it does, and it's gonna be ridiculous. I'm just gonna cut it and look to re-short higher. So I did add right when it turned, quickly downsized because I knew my size was too big after adding there, and I just waited. And I thought for a long time, I was very confused as to why, because I guess what I'm trying to say is most plays you see, once it goes red, and it's like done. Huge panic, it's over. Here, I had to wait a whole another 2 to 3 hours before it went back red. So it was very odd, but you have to stay patient. You have to trust your plan. And that's what I did. I kept my risk now at this bounce high level. And so I added here, panicked, held red, green one more time, but still stayed sideways. Added again when I wanted to go red again. And I started covering into these dips. Now, what made me, I won't say uncomfortable, but something I noticed was I was like, where's the big panic, right? Where is the get me the hell out, right? Where are the longs that want to get out at any cost, and this thing's going to panic 10, 20, 30%, which offers a dip opportunity. I was looking for that move to cover most. So that's why you see me covering here, because I thought this isn't doing it, right? I've been wanting and waiting for this huge, huge panic. It's not coming. Something's up. Something tells me they're not done with this yet, and it's going to go higher. So I covered, didn't want to hold overnight, and turns out that actually was the case. If you go back here in the intraday, the very next morning they gap it up. I don't know if it was on news or not, but imagine if I just kind of ignored this action and said no, it's the first red day, which is true. Like it is the first red day. Most red days you want to hold overnight, but something about this, like once you get enough experience, you kind of see things, and there's like a second consciousness in your head, like no, just cover. And I just whatever it was, it told me, the voice in my head just told me to cover, like do not risk it. And of course we gap up, so that my whole profit on the day would have been gone if I wanted to hold overnight. So I'm very happy I covered, and ultimately this led to another breakout. So that was these two first days here, and going into next week, LKNCY continued to be a great mover for the rest of that week. One being a really good long trade I had, which I really want to show you guys because this was a great strategy that I used when I was under PDT, and that is longing. It was because it was an overnight long. So what you see here on the daily chart is you see the run up, right, and it topped out at $3 or $3.15 right here. Had this red day, had this gap up that I just mentioned, and now we're looking to break. Now we're breaking out over this 315 level after 2 days of consolidation. So when you look in the intraday chart here, the high day is what, 315 from this day from June or July 1st. We go here, so the breakout level is 315. We break out in the morning. Okay. Now, the way I typically trade breakouts and the way I did under PDT, and this kind of being under PDT molded me to trade breakouts this way, which was this, is that I knew I wasn't a good long trader, and so if I bought a breakout midday and I wasn't comfortable using a day trade, I knew it was very difficult for me to A, to stay patient for the breakout to work, or B, be willing to cut a loss because I hate breakouts to begin with. So using a day trade on a setup I didn't even like to begin with wasn't something I wanted to do. So what I learned is wait for it to prove that the breakout's holding. And if that means you miss it, that means you miss it, right? This could have broken out and immediately went to like 380 in the next hour, and I would have missed it. And and that's just something you have to accept. But there are some breakouts that start off very slowly, and that's the huge advantage for someone under PDT like when I was, and even now, I'm still very impatient with breakouts, and I love to wait till they prove they're working. So what happened here is it broke 315, wasn't even interested in buying, right? I'm not gonna, like I just said, I'm not gonna buy it right on the breakout. I'm gonna wait as long as I possibly can. And as you see here, it then faded all midday to test like the low three area. And if I had bought the breakout and was under PDT, I would have absolutely got shaken out here, 100%. Like I was like, oh my god, it's failing, and I probably would have sold near the bottom. But I waited. I said, no, let this really prove into the close if we're gonna hold, and we do. We come back, we hold 320, like another more higher highs or higher lows, and then we start ramping into the close. And this action right here is usually also what you tend to see, especially if the stock is very strong. And I said, yeah, this thing's going higher. This breakout just held. Most OTCs that hold their breakout and tend to gap up and go higher the next day. So I did take a starter long into the close, and I was like, okay, I'm looking for this to probably test 4. Of course, I didn't hold till 4, and let me actually look up the trades here. I have it. Let's get rid of this red day. Let's see, day 2, perfect, right here. So on this little dip, I actually then added the majority of my size, which allowed me to really execute and make a decent, like I think I made 1,800 or so on this long. And why did I add on this dip? Because look at this. The high a day was what, 335? Where was this morning low? Let's look. Morning low was 336. Okay, and I saw this in real time. I was like, this literally is screaming at me, telling me it just held yesterday's high on this selling volume out the open, held perfectly well, and then you see all this big, huge volume coming in. And so that was my signal. That was my sign. I was like, yep, I need to add, and I did right in this dip around the low or the high 330s, maybe 340, and then we just start ramping. A couple of pullbacks, and again, this is where patience comes with practice, where you just gotta trust your plan, hold through pullbacks, let them really play out. And that's what I did. I did a really good job of this. I ended up selling most, I believe, most in the 380s there. Couldn't stay enough patient for a 4, and in fact, it actually held all day and then squeezed late day for even higher, which I was really excited about, and which then leads to short. Let's pull it out here. So, like I said, on the first red day, back here, when I said I was looking for where's the all-out panic, where's the get me out no matter what longs, like where are the longs that are going to sell at any price that they just want out. That move happened on this day, and it paid out huge. Let me go to enter the trades here. Panic, yeah. So out the open, I did take a little small scalp into this morning spike because it was a pretty strong spike, and OTCs are easy to read if you know how to read the level 2. So I did scalp it and cover to this dip, but didn't want to play too many games with it, and that's why I did end up covering when it bounced back too strongly. But then again, once it broke VWAP, tested VWAP, failed again, and at this point we are up now from the $3 breakout is still, it's not that extended from $3 breakout, but it is still extended from having only one red day between $1 and $6 or $5. I still consider that pretty overextended. So once we tested VWAP, failed VWAP, I said I have to take a starter here. I just have to. I get it in it. And I added more when it kept panicking, making a new low a day. And then you notice here I did not add red green for the same reason why I didn't add red green on the first time, right? It's a chase, right? Rest red green would be the trigger, but again, it's a chase here. So I actually ended up covering a little bit because I had a feeling this was going to bounce. I actually thought it might test me up one more time before, like it did last time, a big bounce. So I did cover some. Once we had a really weak bounce, I thought to myself, okay, this is done. Like this is coming. It's the tape was getting super heavy. Sellers were coming in, panic prints were coming in, and so I added it back, and we just get this massive flush. How to predict this panic? I frankly I thought it was going to be previous, where I was going to have to it was going to grind down all day, and I was going to have to be waiting for this big panic. But the panic happened like right then and there, and so I did get a pretty good cover here. I actually missed the dip buy completely. I just didn't get filled, which is really frustrating. But you know, you're not going to be able to catch them all. And so I then reshorted the bounce, covered in these dips, and that was the best part of the trade. That part I literally made probably close to 8,500, which I was really stoked about. Just the fact how quick it was, and this is the panic I was looking for from the beginning. The problem is where I got a little messy was on this bounce. The mistake I made, and this is a really good lesson for shorting bounces, is there's two ways to do it. And there's one way I don't like doing it, which I did here, which led to losses. And there's one way I do like doing it, which usually leads to, at very worst, a small loss or a small gain. And it's a safer play, which is you can either cut every single time it makes a new high, which leads you to taking multiple losses over and over again, or you take smaller size and have a wider risk and really let the bounce kind of curve out. And that's what I did on CYDY. CYDY, I made such great money because I truly let the bounce play out. Like here, I could have easily back in July or back in June could have just like cut it for every time it made all these new highs. I could have just kept cutting it, but instead I said no, I'm gonna have a very wide risk up to like $9. I'm just gonna let this curve all the way out, right? And that's the best way to do it because yes, you may have a bad average, but you're gonna have a good risk level to really play off of and let it play out and then cover into the fade off. And so once LKNCY happened here, I for whatever reason I had this urge to time the top. This urge to I could just cut it every single time, and that's what you see here, right? I shorted here, cut it, shorted again, cut it again. Tried shorting around red green. It went back green on the day. Cut that again, and so from up 8,500 in the ticker, I proceeded to make it down to only 7,300 on the day, giving back over $1,000 in profits just because I kept thinking I could time the top of this bounce and just keep recutting it, and it's just dumb. I should have just shorted a little bit here, short a little more there, risked on this 450 level, which was the low a day, and the bounce high, which is a good like line in the sand risk level, which is where it topped out. And I would have just faded it back to the low fours, and yeah, it wouldn't have been a great fade. It wouldn't have been a great winner because I would have loved for it to go back to like 370, 360. But at least it would have been a small gain or small loss. It would not have been 4 or 5 losses in a row, leading to giving back almost $1,500 in gains. It's not worth a trade like that. And it was a good lesson, and hopefully a good lesson for you guys. That's just how I prefer to trade them. This is not how I want to trade balances going forward. Yeah, I hope that lesson sunk in right there because it sure did for me. I hate giving back profits after having such a good morning like I did there. So keeping this going, CYDY again. So first, really, like I said, guys, sometimes I think it's maybe a misconception that you see these traders be able to trade all these different tickers and take multiple trades per day and lock in so much profits from so many tickers. But sometimes there's just such, once you learn what your bread and butter setup is and a particular stock moves that setup perfectly, you can just milk it. Like CYDY and LKNCY, I milked the crap out of these like almost all month long. And some see it as a weakness, like, oh, you only trade one stock for a lot of profit. Like, yeah, sometimes that's how it works. That was how this happened this month. I read it very well. Both these were ATMs. They just paid me, when I had a solid trade plan. They paid me a lot this month, and I'm just very happy about it. And so this was one of the last few big gains on CYD, or not last few, but one of the bigger gains on CYDY this month, which was the number 7 breakdown. So if you know the penny stocking framework, there's the kind of the 1, the pre-ramp, pre-pump, the 2, usually a breakout, the 3, the speed up, 4, the dump, 5, the dip buy, 6, the reshort of the bounce of the number 5, and then the 7. The 7 is like the good kiss goodnight, like it just fades off dead. This obviously came back because there's a lot of speculation whether the drug is going to cure COVID or not. But the number 7, I've made it my own and made it into a breakdown. Usually especially on OTCs, you will see a key breakdown level form. And once that breaks down, it's like, instead of a breakout, it's a whole nother awesome panic and move. And I call that the number 7 because it's kind of the first trigger for a number 7 to occur, which is just a fade to oblivion. Like this thing they just usually die off and never come back. And so if you can look on the daily chart here, we formed this line in the sand here. The close here was, I believe, 570. Then the low is 575. Then we get to 590, and then we top out at 585. So really, this 570, 580, 590 level, this support level is forming. And if you look at the intraday here, it's even more clear on the intraday. You see it forming here, right? We have this level here, 575, this level here, 585. So they're making very higher lows, but very slightly, right? Very much less and less each time. And that's kind of the support level you're looking for. So when we come into this day right here, we have this beautiful sideways action, and we start fading into this support level, these previous support levels, into the close. After failing to make multiple new highs over $7. Now, I wasn't risking $7, but to see it fail multiple times and now retest support lows, it's just more and more indicators that we are going to go head lower. So I did take a small short overnight, risking about the 620 level, this nice consolidation sideways level, and whatever happened out the gate, long saw this breakdown support too, and we just panic. We panic super hard. I believe I get some great covers. Let me look at here. I'm pretty sure, yeah, right here, cover most into the low fives. Actually missed the last move to below 5, but locked in over like $4,000 on this play. Love this play because this is when, at this moment, everyone kind of forgets about it, right? Everyone, made their money or lost their money on this panic and this bounce, the big volatile moves, and they kind of move on to new tickers, right? People are trading LKNCY, people are trading other NASDAQ plays, and they forget about the longs that still want to get out on this play. And that's what this is, right? Everyone kind of forgot about it. And so if you were watching it and you just got short, it panics nicely, very beautifully, right? All these longs are getting out. Very few shorts are even acknowledging this ticker anymore. So I wouldn't call it easy, right? Trading is not easy, but it's very simple, play where shorts forget about it. But if you don't forget about it, it's very predictable and very easy to see, which is why I love it and which is why I made a pretty decent profit on it. So that was pretty much it for week 2. On to week 3. We did, again, we're going to keep it going with OTCs. Not going to go over this one too much, but this is LIACF. This was another great OTC runner. 3 huge green days followed by a red day, very similar to LKNCY, very similar to CYDY. And, if we look at my trades here, I believe I have it. This was more of a late day fade where it didn't go red in the morning, right? You had this huge panic. And again, imagine you trying to short on this red, like approaching red to green. Again, it's a huge chase. You don't want to do that. It bounced, tried bouncing again. I frankly thought after this happened, I thought we were going to keep going higher, right? But you let it play out. You let a few hours pass, and we keep fading. We keep fading. We keep fading. All of a sudden, we have this sideways channel right here. We have this low of 185-ish, and then this high of around 197 to $2. And so this is where you could kind of see, like, okay, if it starts fading here, it's going to be a great late day fade play. It's under VWAP, right? And so at this point, when it started breaking down below this level, below this previous sideways support level, I thought to myself, if we can break low a day, if this can take us to the lowest day, it's going to take us to the red, and then we're going to panic because it's going to be the first red green move. And that's exactly what happened, right? So I had my risk on like $2, started adding into these low days here, and I added on red green. Now, I think you'd be like, hi, I thought it was a chase. But again, you're constantly updating your trade plan and updating it as the stock gives you more things to look to account for. And so shorting down here, right, this was a chase. That's why I covered some, because I'm like, this is not, I can't keep adding here. But once we consolidate here and then head lower again, this no longer is a chase because there's all this consolidation, all these longs throughout the day wanted to buy, and now they're getting out. So this was a good area, in my opinion, to add versus here to add. Completely different spots after multiple new data points and consolidation to like add to your trade thesis. And so we just panic. I did cover pretty early because it was very choppy. I mean, you see how many kind of fake bounce here, fake bounce here, fake bounce there. So I just thought, this is the type of panic I like. So I did cover it and then ended up missing a lot to the downside. But I locked in, I believe, over close to 3,000. So very happy with how I traded that. Of course, it's always nice to say you hold for lower, but when it's choppy and kind of like that, you just really don't know when the true bounce is coming. So it's better to take it into weakness than to try to be over greedy and then give it back. So that was one there. Next, we're going to do, what was it here? Then we're going to some NASDAQ plays. Now, wasn't too many the first half to like 60% of the month. It was only OTCs. So I was kind of concerned. I'm like, am I NASDAQ plays going to come back? Usually it's the opposite, where OTCs will be dry for months and I have to trade NASDAQs. But for a few weeks, there just wasn't any great NASDAQ plays for me personally to trade. But then we came around with HGBX, which is super happy with, and IBIO. Now, HGBX, again, just multiple green days, looking for the first red day. And I believe I kind of screwed it up. If there's here, I took a pre-market short. I think we believe me and Jack talked about this on our twist episode a couple weeks ago, where we took a pre-market short, thinking the same thing, that this is the first time it was red in the day. Even pre-market was the first time it was red in the day, and I was risking all-time highs, and then we just squeeze. And it's a really shitty move to get caught in, but it broke my risk like immediately, so which is why I covered there. Really annoying that it would go from red in the day to all-time highs that quickly, but this is trading. Anything can happen, and it did. So I just waited. I said, you know what? I clearly this is way stronger than I think. Let me just chill, lay back, let this figure itself out. And so we tried a morning spike, fail. Tried a morning spike again, actually make a little new high here, and actually a huge fake out, fail again. So at this point, now that we're under view app, I did take a small starter here. Again, this is a chase, right? Do not think that this was a good entry. This is a chase. That's why I also covered some here. But once we bounced and then failed at view app, I thought, okay, this is likely backside. This little red-green move pre-market was just a little hint. It needed one last squeeze out. So I reach it short. We go red, cover a little bit here. And this is a trade that I wasn't too happy with, because I think because I took a huge, not a huge, but an unnecessary loss pre-market, it made me uncomfortable with how this might play out the rest of the day. And so I kind of kept covering small pieces when I really didn't need to, right? I could have just trusted the plan, risked, $4 around up here by the bounce high, and just let it play out. But I didn't, and I just kept covering small pieces. I like this cover here. I like this reshort here. But again, looking at the daily chart, we're up from $1 to $4, and then for whatever reason, I just felt the extreme urge to cover it all in the low threes, the 315, 317, and then to watch it go even lower. It was a little bit upsetting, because I just had that idea in my head of like, this is going to go lower than I think. I kept telling myself that, like, this is going to go lower than I think, but I kept covering in these spots. And then when I covered it all here and then see it go lower, it's like, what are you doing, Kyle? Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to time a bottom. You're never going to be perfectly timed the bottom. And if you do, you're likely going to give back gains trying to time it and end up giving money back into the bounce. But when I saw this go lower after I covered it all, I just shook my head at myself, right? I was like, Kyle, you told yourself this is going to go lower than you think. Like, why didn't you just hold for a little bit? And I would have been happy covering, in the sub 3 wash, and I would have missed this, and I would have been fine with that. But covering in the low threes to then really having conviction would go sub 3, and then having watch it do that not even 10 minutes later, that was super disappointing. But again, I did lock in, about $1,000 even after this loss. So still happy with it overall. Just a little bit annoying that I didn't literally see my trade plan fall through all the way. But IBIO was on the same day, and I was super, super happy with how I traded this. And I think something that contributed to how I traded this was that if you look left, look how similar the red day is, right? It has one green day, then a huge gap up green day to make the top. Second time, couple green days, and then a huge gap up last green day to make the top. And so you look at this red day, it's a gap up, dump, fades red. The same thing. Gapped up, actually gapped up to new highs, dumped, and then faded red. And so it's exactly what happened. Very, very happy with how I traded it right here. So right as we dumped out the open, considering the last few days, not this, there we go. The last few days, it always had a morning spike. You see here, most mornings, it didn't have a dip. I mean, on the last time, it had a dip and then it ripped. But all these days, at least the day prior and the day right before the dump, there was no dip in the morning. I mean, it opened and it spiked right away. So when we didn't do that on this day, that made me very convicted after looking left at the previous run-up that it might have the same exact thing on a red day. So right when we dumped to the open, took a small starter. Again, this is something I do need to work on, as you can tell. My first entry is usually a chase. Now, don't assume that just because I'm chasing and entering, it means I'm taking full size. Usually I recognize I'm chasing in the moment, but I'm taking a starter small position into weakness just to remove the FOMO. Because the whole reason why I chase in the first place is because I have FOMO. So it's kind of my way of dealing with a problem that shouldn't happen anyway, but I'm finding a way to deal with it just to remove that FOMO and remove from making any future mistakes into the trade by taking a small starter into weakness. It is chasing, but it is small, so I can just get it on. All right, I'm in the trade. I can now watch the position a little more clearly with a small size and know I'm in, and I can just read it from there. And so in this particular case, that helped me out a lot because right when it bounced, I said, okay, this is the actual entry I should be shorting. I shorted it, and after I shorted that bounce, it never went higher. We did have a small bounce back to there, but still in the review app, and we just fade, right? I add a little more, you go red, I cover a little more, we bounce, the fail bounce fails, add a little bit more, panic again to low or below 6, which I had a very high conviction it would do. Covered there and just super happy with it. Reshorted this bounce, but again, after a while, I thought after all these little higher lows, I thought it's like I don't think it's going to go much lower for the day. Covered ended up being the right choice. Now we did go lower the next day on a big gap down, which in hindsight it's like damn it, Kyle, why didn't you short overnight? But the longer I trade, the less patient I get. The more I'd rather just lock in gains on the intraday and then just not have to worry about the stress of swinging and potential news coming out overnight. Because for whatever reason, whenever I try to swing on most plays, I just get screwed. So it sucks to miss the downside the next day, but it is what it is. I locked in over $4,000 on this red day, so super happy with that. There was, I believe, another OTC that I didn't put up here. I think it was NEXCF. Another huge runner. I did talk about one of the trades I took on it on the last Twist episode this week. So if you haven't seen that episode, watch that version of it. But I believe that was just the second panic after the offering news. The reality was I made quite a decent amount of money. I think about $5,000 on this red day here. The data's all messed up, but I have the intraday here. Let's get rid of this here. Where is it here? Is this it? No, LIACF. NEXCF, here it is, yeah. So I believe I talked about NEXCF red day on this day because it was in the end of June. But into July, we keep going. We keep pumping. We break out. I actually didn't even make money on this breakout, didn't long it. But now 3 more days or 4 more green days up, I'm looking for the next red day. Again, this is just another great OTC opportunity. This is why I think this month was so great because I've never gotten so many awesome OTC runners. And so once we did go red, I did short. Again, a little bit of chase here, but there is, I guess it's like I'm not trying to justify why I chase some areas and sometimes I don't. But when you have enough experience in your trade long as I have, you just are able to read certain stocks better. And I just knew that this stock is the one that when it goes red green, it really goes red green and it really panics hard. So I wasn't too concerned about shorting down here, even though it did just panic that much. Versus other tickers I know going red green isn't going to be as powerful. So it just takes experience to really learn which stocks do which kind of moves and how quickly they do them. So this one I knew, not knew, but I had very high conviction. Once it goes red, it really goes red. And so that's what happened. I covered a little bit, reshorted some of the bounce here, reshorted some more because I just thought this is super weak, watching the action in real time. Covered a little bit into the 6 breakdown, and then we bounced much more than I thought we did. And I was kind of concerned. I was like, man, is this really going to go sub 6 like it should? But I don't want to try to be predictive. I want to be reactive, and this bounce is a little bit concerning. But I got bailed out, right? This panic here went straight down. If we panicked, held a little bit, and tried bouncing it, I probably would have psyched myself out and covered it all above 6. But because we just straight panicked, I mean, that really helped me out to just say, okay, this is definitely it. This is definitely likely the bottom. Covered it all sub 6, chopped around, then went higher, and I was done with it for the day. I believe I did reshort in a different broker for this bounce short. Faded it down, thought it looked really good going to the close, wanted to swing overnight. But then we, start trending and we start squeezing into the close over the bounce highs, which is pretty impressive move. I ended up covering and lost like $400, gave it back just because this is not a move I want to see shorting overnight. And as you can see here, it actually kind of chopped around the next 3 or 4 days before it went lower. Completely missed this dump, but like I said on Twist episode, I did kind of analyze why I reshorted here into the conference call and it reopened with an offering. I go into much bigger detail on that episode there, so go and watch that if you want a breakdown of that trade. Into still in week 4, ending week 4 off one of these days, I did take another unfortunate loss on, what was it, WNDW. This was a huge squeezer. I couldn't find any news. but after the fact, I found out they released some video on their product. It was okay, but it's like clearly they didn't really care much considering it's back down to where it came from. But in the moment when they released this video, I mean, it just ramped super, super fast. And normally I'm not one to short such strength like this, but knowing this company's history and how it moves, I also was pretty convicted that it would sell off pretty well, which it did the day after. But in the moment on this day, it just did not do that, and I got kind of screwed. If we look at the intraday trades here, right into 5 resistance, which I felt really comfortable shorting right here. It panicked a little bit, but then quickly squeezed. And when it squeezed, there's some tickers that have these little air pockets where they're liquid enough to get in and out, but they're not liquid enough to get in and out safely at certain points. Because you see, there's a lot of decent enough volume, but quickly, right when it broke 5, the next best ask was like 5.15, right? So 15 cents of immediate slippage that I knew I had to take, otherwise it was going to go way higher. So fortunately, I had to chase. I had to take that slippage, and which resulted in probably most of my loss on this particular trade. Reshorted up here, covered for probably break even there. Reshorted here, covered for like little profit there. So ultimately, I ended up losing like close to $900 on this trade. Mainly, most of it being right here. It sucks, but it is what it is. What really pissed me off the most was that the very next day on this panic, which is when I should have shorted. Like this, really, I could have avoided this trade completely. I could have not been aggressive. I could have just avoided shorting into strength like this. But on this day, when it goes red, after enough people see the video and realize it's not that big of a deal, this should have been the great short. This is the time I should have been short and really fade this down to 4, even sub 4. Instead, I literally trade like I've never traded before. I long it right at the open, thinking because it was such a difficult short the day prior, I thought this is gonna go way. I was like convincing myself this is gonna way higher. Like this is gonna be awesome. I've long it right here, and I was just so wrong. Right, just so wrong. I longed in like the first minute or two of the open. We panic again. More air pockets. So by the time it goes red, the next best sell is like 470. So I had to sell there. I lost I think about $300. I did take small size because I knew air pockets could be a potentiality, or Um, so I'm happy I took small size. It was only like $300 loss, but what was more frustrating is because I was so focused on the long, I just completely was so unprepared for the short. And so once it happened and I sold my long, I'm like, this was the short. This should have been short the entire morning. This should never have been a long in my mind. Um, just based on how I trade, and look at it. It fades literally almost back to the lows where it started its run the day prior. So super frustrating, but not the end of the world. It happens. You're not going to be perfect on every trade. So that was it for that week. The last week here, like I said, NEXCF I traded. That was on the Twist episode. I also traded GBTC with Bitcoin running. I went over that trade in the Twist episode, so watch those as well. GNCA, though, is an example where I think something that really allowed me to improve my trading a lot and having such small losses. Because you look here, I'm risking usually between $400 to $1,000 per trade. Now, the fact that my average loss is like on the very low end of that spectrum makes me very happy. Now, I would say you need to be careful though, and that some people think that the smaller the losses are, the better. But I would be cautious and making sure that you aren't avoiding losses, right? Don't think that just because your losses are super, super small that you're doing a good job. You may be playing too conservatively, and you're missing out on taking bigger risk at bigger times to let a bigger payout happen on bigger plays. And so when I saw how this month was playing out, I was kind of concerned about that. I was like, why are my losses so small? Like I'm having great big gains, but like the amount I'm risking and the actual losses I'm taking are way different. And so I kind of second guess myself, like, am I actually trading safely or am I kind of avoiding losses? And what ultimately I came to realize is that I'm getting much, much better at only taking size on trades that I have a very high conviction level and win rate on. And until those signs in a certain trade show themselves, I won't take full size. So a perfect example of this is GNCA, where I think I have the intraday trades here. GNCA, you can pull the daily chart. It's a huge, huge runner. Ran from I think $1 or $2 all the way up to 5 or 6. And this was on one of the top days, or one towards the top. I think it went higher. It kind of screwed me over. I didn't really make much money on it, but this is a perfect example where is a trade I normally would want to risk a lot of money. I would want to risk maybe 700-800 on this particular play, but I only took a $300 loss on this trade. Why? Because one is I avoided this money spike, kind of got timid, didn't reshort these bounces here. Once we panicked, I thought, okay, if we could re-break these lows, we're gonna go red. So we took a small starter. Again, a small starter, even though it's in the weakness, it's small. And once we started, holding here, holding again, I realized like this is not it. I'm cutting it. And so it's just a perfect example of how from the moment I enter the trade, it doesn't work. So that's why I usually start with a starter, because with a starter position, you could either easily tell within the first 5, 10, 15 minutes to an hour, how the trade is reacting. And if it doesn't look good, if it doesn't show you what you want in that time frame, sometimes yes, you are right, and sometimes yes, you do have having patience really is a good thing. But with enough experience, you kind of quickly can tell which trades aren't happening. And this was a perfect example. So I had a starter on, and after all these bounces, I'm like, this just isn't it. This is not happening. This isn't going to break down. And so I cover, and I ended up being right. Yes, it did go, it consolidated a little bit lower than where I covered, but it ended up squeezing. And can I tell you, oh, I can predict the future? No, I can't predict the future. This could have easily faded off, and I probably would have had to reshort, maybe at even a lower price. But after so much experience, you gotta trust your gut a little bit, and so the fact that I've gotten pretty decent at now starting in and then off that starter being able to read a stock very well, and whether I want to add size later when confirmation comes in and the likelihood that I make money and a panic is coming is very likely, and then that's when I add my size. It makes it very effective for me to then only take small losses on the losers and really push size on the winners. Now, of course, there's going to be those moments where I do push size on a particular ticker and it comes back, right? And that's in those cases, that's the time I'm fully ready to accept $1,000 loss. I'll take a full size loss on those particular trades because I did have conviction, I did have confirmation, and I added size then, and they came back. It's going to happen, right? No win rate or no strategy is perfect all the time, and that you're going to always make big money doing that. But doing that more times than not allows me to really push size in the winners that I do end up making a lot of money on, and then avoiding the ones that don't work, and I never have to add size because I don't ever get any confirmation. And this is why I wanted to go over GNCA, because it's just like after I shorted, there was no confirmation after I shorted to make me want to add size, right? At a higher low, another higher high, starts going towards VWAP again. I cover on a dip, then actually gets above VWAP. I definitely would have covered it once I started testing up here, just because like this isn't happening for me. This isn't working. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm kind of explaining this quite in detail, maybe too much, but that's just really a game changer that I realized that has allowed me to keep my losses very small and make my winners very big, because I've been able to add in the right places and add on certain confirmation levels that really show me a trade is going to work. So then into the last few days of the month, there was Kodak. I didn't make really that much money on it, but I do want to go over it because a lot of shorts just got their ass screwed. And I'm not saying that with any I don't wish losses on anyone. I say it with empathy, man, because this is one of those moves that happen once, twice a year, and it just shows why you manage risk, man. It really shows why if you have a stop loss, you cut it. You cut it immediately, man, because when this shit happens, I mean, this is just watching it. I wasn't short during this move, thank the Lord. I probably wouldn't have been anyway, because I cut these things like there's no tomorrow. But just watching it, imagining being in it, and knowing other shorts were in it, because this is a short squeeze. Like very few longs are actually buying this kind of a move, and if they are, they deserve all the losses coming to them. Don't mean to be harsh there, but it's just the fact. Like if you read action, you do not long this this high into the run up. But knowing shorts were in it and shorts getting squeezed, I was scared for them. Like I was watching this happen, and I was like, holy crap, this is terrifying. Like this is the most scariest thing you could be in right now as a short seller. And so ultimately, that's why I actually missed this dump, because I just got timid. I saw this turning, and I was like, man, all it needs is like one more buyer to fucking squeeze this higher. So I just said, no, not for me. I did reshort the bouncer because I had much more conviction at this point that it was backside, that all these, the shorts really got squeezed out then. Now there's people who are longs who are probably stuck and want to get out as well. So I did take a small reshort here, covered into the sub 30 wash, then it reshorted into what I thought was sideways action, but we get this little volume perk and we just squeeze right back. So I did give money back. Um, but it just a lesson that you really don't need to even be here for this day at all. Unfortunately, so many shorts did blow up or did get really hurt from this squeeze. So a lot of brokers actually restricted you from shorting it. But the next day, this day, was just it was such a much less so much lower stress, easier, predictable play because you're just trying to shorten this parabolic is just scary, right? And but if you look at the second day, doesn't have a morning spike, double tops in front of all of its resistance on the day prior. Volume is way bigger today than it was today. And you could have shorted any one of these bounces, picked a rest level, whether it would be the day high or the previous day high, like 48, and you could just faded it, right? You could have just faded it all day. It did hold the red green here, which would have been a little concerning, but you could have always downsized. You could have, like I said, similar to LIACF, that was an OTC, but this is a NASDAQ. It looks very similar, right? Where you see this pull, holds green, tries to bounce, and then this bounce fails twice. Now you now have two really lower highs that really confirm that this isn't really going much higher today. And you could have reshorted on this breakdown. It went red, and you could have covered, from the mid 30s into the sub 30s, into the 28, 29 level. Of course, it's easy to say hindsight I didn't take this trade, but it's like it's just such an easier, less stress trade. Unfortunately, I couldn't take it because again, my brokers all restricted shorting on it because too many shorts screwed themselves the day prior. But just a little lesson, and just you don't have to be. You do not need to be there for the most exciting. This is like the hot chick that every guy wants, and this is the one that is right for you anyway, and it's just gonna go way smoother. It's kind of a funny analogy, but yeah, it's like you just don't even need to short this today. Wait for the first red day. It's so much less stress and easier in the long run. Last trade, which was I believe it was Friday, PEIX. I went over this trade in quite some detail on in the challenge chat. Again, beautiful daily. And if you look here, if we go to intraday, let's see this here. Again, if you look in the daily there for a second, never went red green, continually held green, went higher, held green, went higher. And if you look here again, like I went over on IBIO, where you look left on the daily chart, you can also look left on the intraday chart and try to kind of give you hints for what's to come. And so that's what happened here. I saw this kind of panic, I saw this kind of panic, and I thought to myself, once this goes red, or once this has its official backside move, it's going to offer a very nice panic like this. And if you look right again, that's pretty much what happened. Right out the open, we had this massive selling volume, and I wanted a bounce to get short into. I remember saying this in challenge times, like I really want to bounce. But after seeing these few candles right here trying to wick it, like see these wicks, this was when it was trying to bounce and it just couldn't. There were just sellers kept refreshing on the ass, kept hitting the bid, and I thought, like, yeah, this is weak. Let me get in. I think I actually have my trades here. Yeah, let me do this. Yeah, so you actually see it right here. You see where these tried to bounce. I'm like, no, like this is weak as hell. Let me get in. So I slam in a little bit. I realize a bounce is eventually going to come. So I do downsize a little bit. That's when this bounce actually came. But again, it was right into view apps. I said, this is perfect time to, this is like similar to what I did on, what ticker was it? Was it IBIO? Yeah, IBIO, where I sorted into the bounce, where once I was short and I covered a little bit and then it had the real bounce, I was like, okay, this is the real time to enter. Entered right here. Again, stayed under VWAP all day, which kept me comfortable. Shorted again on the new low day. We went red, panicked, covered a little bit here, covered a little bit here. Didn't cover it all right here, which in hindsight I probably should have. But again, looking at the daily chart, I just thought, we're up from literally, below one or one, yeah, literally at $1, and we're up to almost three. I just thought going under $2 is definitely possible. I really thought it could happen. So I didn't cover it all. I covered it most, reshorted these bounces, and I really thought this action right here was going to lead to a new low, like sub 2. And when we started going up higher, it just didn't happen. So I just cut it. This isn't really a great place to cut. I could have waited maybe for these dips here, but ultimately I'm pretty happy with it. I locked in, about $2,700 on the trade. Could have been a little lower. I could have made like $3,500 if I covered it all here, but I'm not going to try to beat myself up. The reality is just how I managed it here and covered most into this panic here. I'm very, very happy with, and closed out the month really, really well. So that's pretty much it, guys. I think this video is gonna be just as long as usual. I love analyzing these things for you guys, and certainly helps me. But again, going into August, again, no expectations. I had no idea that this month was going to be better than my July after how July ended so well. I didn't have any expectations, so I'm going to do the same going in August. It could be high, it could be a better month, could be a worse month. I'm just going to take what the market gives me, and I'm just going to keep moving forward. So thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you guys next time.